A very good afternoon to all of you. I welcome you all and extend my heartiest gratitude for attending the second SAARC Talk Series 2023. This is Dr. Beena Gandhi Deori, Deputy Director, Research, SAARC Cultural Center, Sri Lanka. SAARC Cultural Center started this online SAARC Talk series, and we have already completed one lecture in the month of May, and this is our second talk series for the month of June. On this occasion, we are honored to have with us Ms. Renuka Kelaniya, Director, SAARC Cultural Center, to give the welcome address. Over to the Director.
Good afternoon, Professor V.D. Nandadeva, distinguished guests. On behalf of the SAARC Cultural Center, I am honored to welcome you all to the second session of the talk series on cultural heritage and cultural diversity in the SAARC region, organized by the SAARC Cultural Center. As I mentioned on the opening day, this talk series is a significant initiative aimed at fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation for the rich cultural heritage and diverse traditions that exist within our region. Today, once again, we are providing a platform for individuals from various professional backgrounds to share their expertise and engage in thoughtful discussions on issues of mutual regional importance. Today, our speaker, Professor D.D. Nandadeva, will discuss the topic of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage for South Asian regional cooperation. His knowledge will undoubtedly inspire us and broaden our perspectives on cultural diversity. We are privileged to have such a distinguished group of professionals and experts who have graciously agreed to share their wisdom with us. Their presence here today reflects their commitment to preserving and promoting cultural heritage, and we are truly grateful for their participation. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker today for his invaluable contribution. I invite the audience to actively participate in these discussions and contribute to a fruitful exchange of ideas. Thank you, and let us continue this inspiring journey towards cultural diversity. May the second session of the talk series be a resounding success. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. A few announcements before we start the session. During the lecture, I request all the audience to please mute their mic. All the listeners are kindly requested to drop their questions or comments in the message box down, or wait till the end, because after the lecture there will be a question and answer session. Now moving on, the speaker of the online SAARC Talk Series 2023 for the month of June is Dr. B.D. Nandadeva, who is a retired professor. He was affiliated with the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. He is a conservation scientist and technical art historian with a PhD from the University of Delaware, USA, specializing in the application of scientific analytical methods to study cultural materials. He has held the Forbes Fellowship in Research on Asian Art at the Freer Gallery of the Smithsonian Institution and the Caroline Villers Research Fellowship in Technical Art History at the Coutts Institute of Art of the University of London. His research includes mud architectural techniques, traditional materials, and methods of Buddhist temple paintings, rock art, folk terracotta figurine art, and palm leaf manuscript cover paintings. He led the two teams that prepared the nomination on traditional string puppet drama and traditional Dumbara Ratha mats for inscription in the UNESCO representative list of Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity that were adopted in 2018 and 2021 respectively. He has represented Sri Lanka as the expert member of its official delegation to the UNESCO Intergovernmental Committee meetings held in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, Port Louis in Mauritius, Bogota in Colombia, Kensington in Jamaica, and Paris. He is also a member of UNESCO Global Facilitators Network for Intangible Cultural Heritage. Currently, he serves as an independent consultant in the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage and heritage management. This afternoon, Dr. Nandadeva is going to speak on a very important topic, safeguarding intangible cultural heritage for South Asian Regional Cooperation. Over to you, Dr. Nandadeva.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. I need to express my thanks to Madam Renuka Ikanayaka, the director of the SAARC Cultural Center, for inviting me to deliver this talk today as a part of its series of monthly talks. And also I want to thank Dr. Beena Gandhi Diore, the Deputy Director for Research at the SAARC Cultural Center, for giving this introduction about myself, my background. Okay, so today's topic is safeguarding intangible cultural heritage for South Asian Regional Cooperation. Before I start this lecture, I need to make an announcement, that is, I would like to dedicate this lecture to two individuals, Dr. Ritu Sethi and Dr. Ananya Bhattacharya. Dr. Ritu Sethi is the founder and chair of the Craft Revival Trust and the managing editor of Asia Inc. And Ananya is the director, co-founder and director of BanglaNat.com. Both individuals have done so much for the promotion of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. I have known them for quite some time, working together with them. And so I think they deserve the dedication of this talk for their as a mark of gratitude, appreciation, and respect to their work. And going from there, I would also like to say that the intended audience for this talk is primarily students and early career professionals. Therefore, the contents of this talk is going to be basic information that is deriving mostly from the UNESCO 2003 Convention on the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. And secondly, because it is intended for students, this is mostly text-based. I used the font size 24 for this presentation. I normally use a larger font for my presentations, but I use 24 because this is online presentation, so you will be looking at from very close distance from on your screens. And there will be 4 parts. The first part is the source of information. I thought it would be useful for students to know about the sources to prepare for their exams and all that. And secondly, the more lengthy part is the convention in context, and even more lengthy is the third part, the convention text. Then the last section is the ICH safeguarding for South Asia Regional Cooperation, which is the main theme of this talk. And we will have plenty of time for questions and discussion. Okay, apart from the sources of information, the best source is the website, the UNESCO website, official website dedicated to intangible cultural heritage safeguarding. During this talk, I will use the for intangible cultural heritage. And when you open this page, and when you bring up you will get this screen. The screen turns blue, and select from this list convention, the list, heritage safeguarding status. So as you click on this, you get the large number of files, including the text of convention, its operational directives, and all of the documents that the UNESCO has produced so far since 2003. This is a very rich source of information, especially for students and young professionals. One of the most important useful text is this one, this called basic texts, which contains the convention, the operational directives, rules of procedure for the General Assembly, and the rules of procedure for the Intergovernmental Committee, and then financial regulations, ethical principles, and more annexes. I would strongly recommend us, special students, to read chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 6. And all these are in just one handy book called the basic texts, which you can download from the previously mentioned website. And this is revised every 2 years because the convention does not change, but the operational directives that give interpretation and descriptions about how you implement the convention, the clauses of the convention, are in the operational directives, and the operational directives keep changing from once in 2 years. When the General Assembly meets, they adopt these new revisions, and the operational directives keep growing. And also I need to ask you to invite you to, you simply cannot learn about intangible cultural heritage safeguarding just by looking at the convention alone. You have to know the big picture. Okay, therefore I will spend a few minutes describing the background from which the 2003 convention emerged. So the convention, I call that section the convention in context. So we will very briefly talk about the UNESCO standard setting environment for heritage preservation, which led to the adoption of the 2003 Intangible Heritage Convention. These are the 4 major documents that the UNESCO produced through its engagement. We all know about the 1972 convention. We briefly call it World Heritage Convention. And everybody thinks that the World Heritage Convention deals only with the tangible part of heritage. Then, to take care of the intangible heritage, the UNESCO produced the next instrument called Recommendation on the Safeguarding of Traditional Culture and Folklore, that was in 1989. However, this recommendation came under heavy criticism by professionals and academics, and they began a consultation process, and as a result, the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage was born. But still people had controversies about how to combine the two. So then in the following year, another document came up called the Yamato Declaration on Integrated Approaches for Safeguarding Tangible Heritage and Intangible Cultural Heritage. Okay, so this is the kind of context that we need to know as beginners. So let's spend a few minutes looking at these documents, the World Heritage Criteria. But the majority of professionals think that the World Cultural Heritage Convention deals only with the tangible aspect, and it has no sympathy for intangible, which is not true. According to the World Heritage Convention, there are 6 criteria, but 5 criteria directly talk with the tangible aspects. The 6th criteria deals with the intangible aspects. It says that the be directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions with ideas or with beliefs, etc. But those who write nominations cannot use only this criteria 6. It has to be combined with, in conjunction with another one criteria, either criteria 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. However, when I look closely, I noticed that 3 of the 5 criteria for World Heritage Convention at least remotely connected to intellectual heritage. Those are criteria 2, exhibit an important interchange of human values over a span of time or within a cultural area. This is partly, it's part the human, but it's partly with the important interchange of human values, which is intangible. Similarly, there are 3 bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a country or to a civilization, living or dead. I think it has some dimension of intangible cultural heritage. The criteria 4 is to deal tangible aspects, but criteria 5 again, we have an example of the traditional use, language, still use, which is repetitive. I think to that this criteria also shows an intangible dimension of a tangible monument. Therefore, this is how these ideas came up, but people still believed that some professionals didn't agree with the paying too much attention to the intangible aspects, so they were mostly dealing with the tangible aspects, so that there was this debate between these two schools of heritage preservation. Therefore, the UNESCO came up with the 1989 recommendation, and there the 6 measures to safeguard folklore. This recommendation is called the recommendation on the safeguarding of traditional culture and folklore. Please pay attention to the terminology. Safeguarding of traditional culture and folklore. So, but they identified, they prescribed, recommended 6 actions to safeguard folklore, that is identification, conservation, preservation, dissemination, protection, and international cooperation. So very briefly, I have summarized them on the other side of the slide. Identification means doing surveys and research to identify and record. Conservation means that just documentation, archiving, and creating folk museums. You see that there is no action to safeguard. The preservation is teaching and respecting folklore and supporting practitioners. Action 4 is this dissemination of knowledge. Okay, that's like holding fairs, festivals, principally legal protection to the rights of practitioners, like intellectual rights when it comes to literature. And the international cooperation was to deal with to cooperate with international and regional associations, which has been adapted for the 2003 bill. However, there were criticism again by intangible cultural heritage experts against this recommendation for many reasons. These are the reasons. I have picked up 5 reasons. One is meeting the definition and use of the term traditional culture and folklore. ICH, intangible cultural heritage experts, didn't like the word folklore, and I will matter a little later. And also they criticize it for giving more importance outside experts in recommendations rather than the communities or the practitioners of intangible cultural heritage in safeguarding it. Third point was criticism was against for considering ICH as a universal heritage humanity, and as its implication is that it deflects the attention from the importance of the value of ICH to the communities that it practices. And the fourth reason was for drawing too heavily on the models for tangible heritage conservation, because they have drawn too much from the 1972 convention. And lastly, for paying less attention to the importance of continuation, that's a continuation of the cultural practices, or revitalizing the intangible cultural heritage practice. Therefore, there's a lot of criticism. Then what happened? Then let me spend 2 minutes why people didn't like this idea of folklore, because we all know we have been using the word folklore for decades. Universities have been teaching courses on folklore. It is the same thing, that the same cultural practice, whether you call it folklore or intangible cultural heritage. Then what is the difference? The difference is in the approach. Folklorist approach is more academic, okay, and they pay more attention to they give more significance to documentation and research, and also there is a bias of refinement, because they looked at higher level folklore and lower level folklore. And also it is value relevant. Why we call it value relevant? Because when you folklore means the law of the folks. Folks are the rural folks, like the people from the countryside, those who are occupied in occupations, they're engaged in occupations that represent the lower stratas of the occupational hierarchy. Therefore, for that bias, ICH experts that we do not need this recommendation, we need a new instrument, legal instrument, because our aim have to be safeguarding them, and the ICH approach is bias free. There is no bias, it's very objective, and also value neutral. It doesn't attach any value as something that was reflected in the occupational hierarchy. The other problems with this folklore approach is the folklore approach instigates a romanticization of your heritage, and also homogenization of culture. In other words, what you call exclusivity. You think that it is your own cultural heritage, your ancestors did it, your forefathers did it. And also it promotes the notions of authenticity, because this is clear, this is unique, this is very pristine, no ideas like that sort of attachments, and uniqueness and exclusive. And also it is attached to the feelings of nationalism. So which leads in total, by and large, it leads to segregation among communities within the society, or even lead into conflicts. But the ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage approach, is different. Intangible cultural heritage practitioners promote notions of collective memory, because it belongs to everybody. And also we promote the notions of inclusivity. Intangible cultural heritage is an inclusive something, okay? And also it promotes the notion of shared culture, which by and large leads to social harmony. That is what the UNESCO needs, that's what we need. Leads to social harmony, reconciliation among groups, and leads to lasting peace, which contributes to sustainable development. So that is Let me show you just one map which I borrowed from the internet. I have given the map credits down there. If you look at the trade routes surrounding or within our region, you will see that how can homogeneous cultures exist in a world where countries have been so well connected through several millennia. The trade routes that you see on this map, some trade routes are even more than 5,000 years old, which means for like 5 millennia, the people in this part of the world have been connected so well. Okay, therefore, the assimilation of cultures, introduction of new ideas, it's so common that therefore it is homogenization of culture is it's impossible. So we are well connected. We have our cultures are shared, and they are inclusive. So this the birth of our convention, the UNESCO 2003 convention. I have shown it here. The criticism against these recommendations they mounted, and 1999 the UNESCO and Smithsonian had a joint conference in Washington DC called the Global Assessment of the 1989 recommendation, and this conference recommended to state governments that they must request UNESCO to undertake a study on the feasibility of adopting a new normative instrument for safeguarding this intangible cultural heritage. So the intangible heritage safeguarding convention was in 2003. So today we are that Sri Lanka we are parties to state participation. So when we talk about intangible cultural heritage conservation, we talk about the implementation of the 2003 UNESCO Convention in our countries. The convention is and the United Nations simple diagram I would like to show that it's surrounding the mission to achieve global vision of sustainable development is UNESCO's vision, and the restore the lasting peace and security is the United Nations vision. Therefore, our convention is going to help the world achieve these two great missions. So, what is the UNESCO role in achieving these two? Safeguarding why UNESCO? Because the for dialogue among civilizations and cultures and peoples, which is based upon respect for only shared values. So that is the point we want to bring out. Okay. This convention wants to promote the respect for common values between communities, between people, these countries. So through this dialogue, UNESCO believes that the world can achieve global visions of sustainable development and restore peace and security. So that is the end of part 2. So now we'll go to the text of the convention, part 3. So this is the convention text. You will see that this is a very lengthy convention. It has 40 clauses, 40 articles, but we pay attention only to the first 24. So it starts with this preamble. Preamble explains to you the justification. So I picked up only 5 or 6 statements. So UNESCO considers the importance of ICH as a mainspring of cultural diversity. UNESCO promotes this idea that all our cultural activities promotes cultural diversity, displays cultural diversity. and it considers the invaluable role of the intangible cultural heritage as a factor in bringing human beings closer together, making everybody inclusive rather than creating barriers between communities to separate each one from the other, and ensure exchange and understanding among them. So that is what the UNESCO believes. The, the convention also considers the need to build greater awareness, especially among the younger generation. You see, that is the reason why I chose this topic for students, because UNESCO always encourages the younger generation to come forward and take up these responsibilities. So the younger generation of the importance of ICH and its safeguarding. So we need to bring this message to the younger generation, especially university students. And also the international community should contribute to the safeguardings of such heritage in a spirit of cooperation and assistance. This is to promote African countries support less developed countries to safeguard their heritage by providing grants, providing funds, and also technology. And also the UNESCO recognizes the process of globalization. I'm sorry, I'll go to the second one. Seventh, so recognizes that communities, in particular indigenous communities, individuals play an important role in the production, safeguarding, maintenance, and recreation of ICH, thus helping to enrich cultural diversity and human creativity. Here, the UNESCO has recognized the contribution of communities, individuals, groups for creating and maintaining intangible cultural heritage. And finally, it recognizes the process of these are about the threats, recognizes the process of globalization. Globalization can be a threat, and social transformation can be a threat because they give rise to grave threats of deterioration, disappearance, and destruction of ICH, in particular owing to lack of resources. Okay, therefore, that is the reason why UNESCO is keen on helping countries, providing assistance to less affluent countries to safeguard their intangible cultural heritage. So the purpose of the convention is first to safeguard ICH. Okay, I will later tell you what safeguarding means. Then to ensure respect for the intangible cultural heritage of the communities, groups, and individuals. Because due to globalization and social transformation, many countries experience that the people pay less respect. People are kind of disrespectful. People are becoming disrespectful towards intangible cultural heritage. So the UNESCO, this convention wants to change that. And C is to raise awareness at local, national, and international level. UNESCO has suggested many ways to raise awareness because due to social transformation, our younger generations are becoming less and less aware of the intangible cultural heritage and its significance. Raise awareness at local, international, national, and national levels. The importance of that is ensure mutual appreciation. And the last purpose is the provide for international cooperation and assistance. As I said earlier, that UNESCO recognizes that not every country has resources in terms of funds and technology. Therefore, this convention is there to provide international cooperation and assistance, like training, and gives the definition. So I have selected six definitions, examples from Sri Lanka. The definition goes like representations, expressions, knowledge, skill and associate instruments and objects and artifacts and cultural spaces that communities, groups, individuals as of their cultural heritage. This is a very simple definition. It is very easy to understand. Practices or representations or you need various instruments. I'll show you in another slide later. Sometimes we have this question why the instruments and objects and artifacts they have a tangible nature. Why did we call it intangible? Because they are associated with like the drums you see here or the masks these players are playing. This is a cultural space. This is a rice threshing field where people perform this kind of this folk play called the sokari, okay, in Sri Lanka. And the convention, the definition gives the main characteristics. It is important that we become familiar with these characteristics. Intangible cultural heritage is transmitted from generation to generation. In the past, it was like from father to son or mother to daughter or parents to children. But now, due to social transformation, sometimes children are not interested in the intangible cultural heritage that their parents practice. So now this has become slightly changed because those who are even outside of the family can be trained in these cultural practices, but it transmits from generation to generation and also provides promotes respect for cultural diversity and human creativity. UNESCO believes that it's a characteristic of ICH that it promotes a respect for cultural diversity, and it's constantly recreated by communities and groups in response to their environment, their interactions with history. So that the constantly recreate intangible cultural heritage does not exist in a lacuna. It's not a frozen thing. Intangible cultural heritage keeps changing. Therefore, by every generation, it's recreated. Like even take for example, I can give you one very brief example. The craftsman that got inscribed on the UNESCO representative list last year. They used another plant called Nandadeva to these mats. But towards the middle of the 19th century, this plant became rare. So they ran out of raw materials. But at the same time, they recognized another plant called jute, which was introduced to Sri Lanka by the Portuguese. So they replaced the Nandadeva fiber with Hana fiber. So this is a good example to show that how they recreate in response to environment. Then provide the community with a sense of identity and continuity. When you talk with these communities, they are very proud of their cultural practices that provides their identity. So, however, the UNESCO considers solely as such ICH as it is compatible with existing human rights instruments like the Human Rights Declaration, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and requirements of mutual respect among communities, groups, and individuals, and of sustainable development. Which means that if there is a intangible cultural heritage element in your community which does not comply with human rights instruments, which does not promote mutual respect, or which does not comply with the requirements for sustainable development, then this convention is not interested in such intangible cultural heritage. Yes, under the same definition, for making it easy for us to understand, the convention does a small categorization, it divides intangible cultural heritage into 5 categories: oral traditions and expressions, including language as a vehicle of the ICH, not language itself. Then performing arts, so it's easy for us to categorize. The social practices, rituals, and festive events like I'm sorry, I cannot come up with a example which is known to everybody in the region. Then the knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe. And the fifth category is traditional craftsmanship, which means it's not the craft itself, but the knowledge and skills of the craft materials and the processes of production, or any beliefs and practices associated with such crafts are considered as intangible cultural heritage, but not the craft object itself. And here I have these examples. What you see in the left corner is a Dumbararata mat, but this is a finished product, but that is not our intangible cultural heritage element. But here on these 2 frames, you see a woman is separating fiber from the hana plant, the leaves. So that is the knowledge. She needs the skills. And here, and the one at the bottom, this man is weaving this mat using the very traditional loom. So he has to learn these skills and get the knowledge of how to do things. So this is not the intangible cultural heritage element, but these are the intangible cultural heritage elements. Similarly, on the other side, we have this string puppet drama in Sri Lanka. So these are the string puppets, but on this, these are the finished product. The performance is the cultural element, but these puppets is not the element by itself, but the way they make these puppets, the carving of the puppets, or the use of the drums, making of the drums, the knowledge and skills associated with, those are the ones that we consider as parts of intangible cultural heritage. But the UNESCO, the other documents, not exactly the convention, encourages the additional of subdomains like traditional play and games, or even animal husbandry, or places of memory, and pilgrimages, even culinary traditions. You can add to this list actually. So this classification given in the convention is not exhaustive. It provides only a possible list of intangible heritage domains. So the definition of safeguarding, this is what the UNESCO considers as safeguarding measures. Identification, and the documentation is also important, and the research important. The research to maintain continuity of the practice. UNESCO is very concerned with continuity. And the protection, which is defend intangible cultural heritage from, then more importantly, the promotion, enhancement, transmission, and revitalization is the safeguarding measures the UNESCO proposes. And you need to know what are the actions that we take with safeguarding measures. This is very important. We normalize our intangible heritage, so people will get money and the country will get money. But to promote some extent the commercial activities, but commercialization and commodification is discouraged. Commercialization is to make large profit-making business. And secondly, the UNESCO discussed contextualization. So here on the other side, you will see that because due to the need to encourage tourism, we often tend to bring intangible cultural heritage to meet the demands of tourist industry. So these 3 examples, you see that folk kind of rural kind of dance forms have been taken to modern stages and cutting their duration, the length, running length to a few minutes of each item for few minutes. So that we call a decontextualization, and also folklorization. I earlier mentioned to consider it as a folklore can be dangerous. Therefore, we are not encouraging that. The safeguarding I see at national level, the articles 11 to 15 state parties to take necessary intangible cultural heritage safeguarding measures with community participations. That is the point that I wanted to highlight. The UNESCO encourages the state parties, the countries, to obtain the community participation to safeguard. And UNESCO also encourages countries to prepare intangible cultural heritage inventories and establish more competent bodies for ICA safeguarding, competent bodies and training institutions to manage documentation institutions. And also the other safeguarding measure is to implement education, awareness raising and capacity building programs. So this talk actually is a part of awareness raising program. And the last measure is to ensure the widest possible active community participation. This is one difference, distinction between the 1989 recommendation and the 2003 convention. 2003 convention encourages the obtaining active community participation, including in management. And the safeguarding at international level is very interesting, because this is very well known now. It maintains three lists of intangible cultural heritage safeguarding. One is the representative list. Article 16 talks about the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity to ensure better visibility. The whole idea is to make it more visible to the world, the global community, and raise awareness of its significance of that ICH, and to encourage dialogue between communities, between people, which enhance the respect for cultural diversity. Okay? Then the second list is called the Intangible Cultural Heritage in Need of Urgent Safeguarding List. In a country is so worried that one of the intangible cultural heritage elements is facing severe threat, is going to extinct within a couple of years or decades, then they can nominate it for this UNESCO urgent safeguarding list and can obtain very large amounts of international funding to safeguard that element. Then the register of good safeguarding practices. This is to promote the good safeguarding practices. Okay. So Article 19 to 23 is the international cooperation and assistance. 19 about cooperation, exchange of information and experience, and do implement joint initiatives that we can very well do within our region. Then purpose for assistance. Then the forms of assistance, then conditions for assistance and request for assistance. And I have given details about the of assistance. These are the purposes for which we can apply international funding from the UNESCO. Safeguarding of the heritage inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list, which I used to if a country does not have to prepare assistance from the UNESCO. Then the support for programs of project is carried out at the national, sub-regional or regional levels aimed at safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, so that we can get enough funding
for that also. Any other purpose that the committee may deem necessary. Then the Article 21 is about of international assistance to conduct studies concerning various aspects. The provision of practitioners, if you need practitioners, we can ask to UNESCO to provide money to get to, to provide us experts. And any country needs training, we can request UNESCO to provide training, elaboration of standard setting and other measures, that is about the conventions, creation and operation of infrastructure. So this is a very rare thing actually in international funding, to even to create or operate infrastructure, we can request fund assistance, to supply of equipment and know-how like computers or audio, video recording instruments. Other forms of financial and technical assistance, including where appropriate, the granting of low interest loans or donations. So this UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage Safeguarding Secretariat is extremely generous in supporting countries to acquire these things. So that is all about the convention. And the last part of the lecture, we are running out of time, but this is going to be short. Achieving South Asian Regional Cooperation through ICH safeguarding. So this is how we have performed. Bhutan, India, and Pakistan signed the convention in 2005. The convention was adopted in 2003, and it came into force in 2005. So Bhutan, India, and Pakistan ratified the convention. Sri Lanka ratified 3 years later, 2008. Afghanistan and Bangladesh ratified 2009, and the Nepal ratified 2010, and Maldives has not ratified yet. So this our engagement with the safeguarding of or the implementing of the convention. From our region, it's only Pakistan has one element inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list, and Afghanistan 3, Bangladesh 4, Bhutan 1, India 4, India the largest, and Pakistan and Sri Lanka 2 each, and Nepal does not have, Maldives is not a state party, and we have not included in the best safeguarding practices list. We have some countries except Sri Lanka, all the other countries have received international assistance once or twice. But my overall impression is that our performance in implementing the convention, except India for being able to inscribe 14 on the representative list, our performance as a region is not impressive. I think we have to be more proactive in safeguarding our intangible cultural heritage and getting engaged with UNESCO. And the potential, I think our region can become an intangible cultural heritage hotspot. Look at the religious diversity. Our region has produced two major faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism. And we have accommodated through other religions, that Islam and Christianity introduced from elsewhere, from outside of the region. But we are very well accommodating those two faiths. And although the doctrine and scriptures and languages by themselves are not considered at ICH, those religious faiths give birth to the religious cultures, like the Buddhist culture, Hindu culture, Islamic culture, and Christian culture. So all the major faiths, they give the beliefs and practices of these major faiths with their multiple divisions. There are so many. In addition to the four main religions, we have hundreds of other local faiths, local religions. And the ethnic diversity, the cultural practices belong to hundreds of ethnic communities or groups. Our region is very rich with so many ethnic groups. So, and the linguistic diversity, oral tradition, transmitted use in several major languages and hundreds of other minor languages are spoken in this region. So I do not see why we cannot become an intangible cultural heritage hotspot. And remember these two slides that I showed you before, the domains of culture, and we have everything here. And the use in the South Asian intangible cultural heritage for regional cooperation, where to begin? My suggestion is that there are two levels where we can act. One is at country level, we should have sound national policies and robust programs to safeguard each South Asian country's own intangible cultural heritage in compliance with the convention. Then at regional level, I suggest that we establish a South Asian regional collaborative program, that is with a strategic plan and an action plan, with the objective of promoting the use of intangible cultural heritage for regional cooperation, which is dedicated only to that purpose. And then utilizing South Asian intangible cultural heritage for regional cooperation, what things we can do. Our major focus of the South Asian intangible cultural heritage regional cooperation program should be based on the convention's preamble. We must highlight the diversity of the South Asia's intangible cultural heritage, and we must encourage mutual appreciation of intangible cultural heritage of each country, each community. We must emphasize on the multicultural character of ICH and the shared nature of it. You remember that map that I showed, we have been sharing for over 5,000 years. Then recognition of the practitioners of intangible cultural communities and to enrich cultural diversity, and also their contribution to human creativity. And then must ensure respect for the practitioner and the concern for their well-being. We need the practitioner and we need their well-being. And we must build awareness among the younger generation of the importance of the region's intangible cultural heritage. We must bring people closer together and ensure exchange and understanding among them. We must promote intra-regional cooperation and mutual assistance. And we must identify the threats of deterioration. What are the threats we have as a region? Operation, the strategy, and very soon, the strategy, the designate an existing body like the SAARC Cultural Center, or establish a competent body. So that's the strategy. The step is the build a fund through an annual contributor for countries, because we need funds. Later we can receive funds from the UNESCO for our project. We should plan the network. ICH experts from region must have a live network, and also establish networks involving these institutions like UNESCO Delhi, UNESCO national commissions of each country, UNESCO points for ICH of each country, the ministries responsible for culture and education, universities offering ICH programs, agencies, public and private agencies involved in sustainable development, official agencies dealing with intellectual property laws, agencies preparing and achieving archiving ICH inventories, and NGO general seminars and conferences, hold intra-regional intangible cultural festive events with performing arts, food, festivals, and so on. Then organize programs to increase the visibility of each country's intangible cultural heritage within the region. Then facilitate the mobility of practitioners across borders. Let's make their movement between countries more easy. The support institutions teaching and research on diversity, the cultural diversity. Then facilitate regional experts meetings for exchange of ideas and best practices. Support regional so I encourage cross-border pilgrimages for regional cooperation, which is already happening. Educate the pilgrims about the multicultural character, because nowadays we know that Sri Lankan Buddhists visit India to worship the places of Buddha associated with Buddha, but do not see the other side of the the objects that they worship, and especially the shared nature, and help pilgrims learn the significance of cultural diversity and also mutual respect. Encourage dialogue among pilgrims, making social bonds and network. And I would like to show you two examples very briefly, the multi-religious sites from Sri Lanka. This is the Mount Sri Pada, or the Adam's Peak. We have these pilgrimages beginning from mid-December to mid-May. I don't want to go through all the text. This is where people go there to worship Buddha's sacred Buddhists visit the site to worship Buddha's sacred footprint atop this mountain. They believe that the Buddha printed his right foot on the rock summit only at his second visit to Sri Lanka. But the Hindus believe that the footprint belongs to God Shiva, Lord Shiva. So they call it Sivanoli Pada. But the Christians and Muslims believe this to be believed to be of Adam's first step on earth after expulsion. So which means that this site is visited by people of all four faiths. So this is an excellent example of the shared nature of intangible cultural heritage. And the Buddhist pilgrimages were over 1,000 years old. So this is one example. Time is running out. I must finish. And the second is the pilgrimage to the shrine of Hindu-Buddhist god Katharagama, who is also known as God Murugan by Tamils. It's a great example of shared heritage. Is God Katharagama or God Murugan is an Indian pan-Indian warrior god, but he chose a hilltop in southern Sri Lanka as his abode. And he was the guardian god of Tamils, but he was assimilated by Sinhala Buddhists to their culture, so he became one of their guardian deities. So God is also worshipped by Vedas, and there is Muslim the shrine sacred to Muslims on the same premises. When invoked, this god is very helpful to the faithful, but he severely punishes offenders and wrongdoers. So when somebody needs something to get done through divine power, they go there. Okay, and the people go there to fulfill vows. This is the Padayatra. This happened during once a year, the grand festival at Katharagama. But people go on pilgrimage right through the year. This is open for 365 days. But right now, in these 2 weeks, they have this grand annual festival. So people from far north come on Padayatra. It's a pilgrimage on foot for 350 kilometers, beginning from Jaffna. And there are a large number of South Indian devotees visited Sri Lanka during this time to worship this god. Okay, so this is the god, image of the god. This ritual So this slide shows this full people going on the pilgrimage on foot from this 350-kilometer journey to worship God Katragama. This primarily Tamil people from Jaffna. They and I said the daily rituals and no festivals, their daily rituals are there for 365 days. And we had this annual festival. It is going on right now. Actually, it began only 2 days ago. So the devotees go there to make vows or fulfill vows. Okay, and they do this Padayatra. This Padayatra is a very interesting intangible cultural heritage element uh, because they meet people of the past to go through several hundreds of villages occupied by different faith, different groups. So, no fundamental part of this fulfilling vows, and the on-site rituals do not dance, music. We have cooking and hanging the flesh on nail slippers, pressing the cheeks with medicine, rolling on the ground and to the day. And there is a considerable number of worshippers from South India come to Katragama to worship this god, early during the annual festival, but right through the year. So I think these are the things that we can select to promote cooperation. These explain that these kind of rituals reflect world views of human existence and also its relation to nature and the supernatural. And this kind of religious dialogue and mutual respect among communities makes the Sri Lanka experience this thing happening every day. Is at this site on Padayatra. The practices connected with the worship of this god exemplify sustainability and also the social cohesion and equity on the same premises. The same premises of the god shrine, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Vedas, Sri Lankans, and Indians meet together, mix together, exchange ideas together, and enjoy together. So this is the whole idea of the promoting intangible cultural heritage and safeguarding. So this is this brings me to the end of my talk, and thank you very much for listening. But we have a few minutes for questions, if you have.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Nandadeva. Your enthusiasm for the subject showed through your lecture, and it has added a lot more insights, into our understanding of the subject. So now I would like to invite our audience for their comments, queries, if they have any questions. I think there was a comment from Nita, Dr. Nita Dubey.
Yes, hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
yes, Mr. Nita.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very insightful presentation. I was just wondering, because nowadays in India there are a lot of archaeological excavations happening in Gujarat, and we are tracing out the maritime connections between the South Asian countries. So I would like to know, in your views, like how can we safeguard this particular area of cultural heritage in this region? What would be your take on that?
You mean the tangible or the intangible?
Sir, for me, both are inseparable, because
Yes,
tangible
correct.
has intangible and intangible has tangible.
Yeah,
So,
I think as far as I know, India has a very strong tradition of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, I dedicated the lecture to two great ICH safeguarding experts, Ritu Sethi and Ananya Bhattacharya. There are a significant number of agencies in India working on intangible cultural heritage, and I'm not sure under which ministry. It should be under the Ministry of Culture.
Yes, it
Uh,
is under the Ministry of Culture.
yes, Ministry of Culture. Therefore, what part of India are you, Dr. Neeta?
I am in New Delhi.
You are in New Delhi, so you are in the heart of the cultural cultural activity in
Yes,
India. Yeah,
yes.
and the university. I don't remember exactly which university that Dr. Ritu Sethi was originally affiliated to. But if you contact people like Dr. Ritu Sethi is known everywhere, throughout the region actually. So you would be able to know the individuals and agencies. One good thing about India's role in safeguarding intangible cultural heritage is that India has a large number of NGOs working independently from government, but under the government supervision in safeguarding intangible cultural heritage of India. Actually, Dr. Ananya once visited Sri Lanka to collaborate with us also. So I think India the Indian people are a very lucky group in our lot, because there's a large number of agencies, and your government is very interested in saving
Yes,
in that, because that is you see the number of in the ICH elements inscribed on the representative list. There are 14. Uh,
yes.
so you may contact the Minister of Culture and ask.
Pardon me, sir. My question actually relates to Maritime Heritage Act, particularly.
Okay, we all know that the maritime India is spearheading maritime archaeological research in our region, and we know several individuals also working on this field. Yeah, maritime archaeological heritage is something that, maritime archaeological heritage should not be limited to just one country, because maritime
Yes,
archaeological heritage shows how India was connected with other countries in the region. Therefore, it is definitely a regional thing. I think that is really ignited this idea of regional cooperation, because we
yes,
definitely need regional cooperation as Indian maritime archaeologists unearth
yes,
this information about how we were connected in the past. I think
yes.
that's a good place to start, Dr. Neeta.
Yes, yes, that's I'm looking forward to that if I can become part of any of such exercise in future, because
Oh,
it is
great.
happening from India, but from Sri Lankan side or from other South Asian countries, if it is.
Yes, in Sri Lanka also there is a strong maritime archaeological heritage unit attached to the Central Cultural Fund and the archaeological department. We also doing some work, and I think some Indian maritime archaeologists are in contact with some Sri Lankans. I understand. I
Yes,
think the future is very bright, Dr.
yes,
Neeta. There
yes,
is an excellent field to open up
yes,
for the
yes,
benefit of everybody,
yes.
not just two countries of us, but all countries of the region.
For both tangible and intangible
Yes,
heritage.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, so much.
You're welcome, Dr. Neeta, and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nandadeva, for being with us. And before we end, I would like to remind our audience regarding the next upcoming lecture, that is the third SAARC Talk series for the month of July, is going to be given by Dr. Iyas Faiz, Executive Board Member of National Language Academy of Maldives, and he is going to speak on etymological connection of Maldivian languages to other Indian languages. Further information regarding the talk as well as for our upcoming events will be circulated or uploaded in our SAARC website and Facebook I once again thank you all for joining and see you all next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for giving this opportunity and listening to the talk.
Yeah.
Bye.